Deconverted blue screen of death man here. I've got the Milwaukee Atheists here, and there's two of them. Blue screen of death is an off-the-camera joke that you guys won't get, but that's okay. Yep. So, hey, guys, how's it going?
It's going okay.
It's going good, besides blue screen of death.
Besides blue screen of death,
My voice apparently can cause computers to kill themselves, so we've learned something new.
Correlation is causation.
Association causation. What's that? So I got two of you because, there's atheists. It's not Milwaukee Atheists. It's plural. So, but there's more than two of you, I suspect. So what's the origin of this name? Let's start there. Introduce you guys. Well, do we have real names for you, or just avatar names?
I believe we do.
Oh, okay.
This is
Chris back here.
Hey.
He used to do like videos on the channel, but now he just does like tech stuff.
Hi, Chris. Chris back there, who used to do videos, but now just does tech stuff. That's a long name.
Yeah.
What were your parents thinking?
They weren't. So then this right here is Ruben, and Ruben is our philosophy guy.
Yeah.
All right.
That's pretty much it. And then I am Lawrence, and I do the history stuff.
All right. Cool. So, yeah, do you guys have deconversion stories? Have you already put that up?
I mean, I kind of did a video on that, so I'll let you go first. Tell yours.
Oh, well, I was raised in a Jewish household, and I went to Sunday school.
As was I.
Every week. And I went to Hebrew school every week. And I did that till I was 16 against my will, because when I was about 10, realized that there were people out there that didn't believe what the very small community that I had been exposed to believed.
I thought everybody believed this.
Yeah, I literally thought everybody believed it as a kid because I hadn't been exposed to people who weren't part of the religion.
Yeah. And also, how bad is that?
What? I don't know what the bleep. What's going on over there? I don't know.
No, it's we got a hookah back here. So how bad is the bubbling?
Oh, I don't hear anything. But now we're in Alice in Wonderland territory, I guess. So that.
Why not?
So back to the story. You realized people didn't believe what you believed.
Oh, yeah. So basically, I just studied religion extensively from that point on. And now I've read a good portion of what people would consider to be Indian religious texts. I've read a lot of translated Chinese stuff. I've read...
not original Chinese stuff.
No, not original Chinese stuff. I can't quite do that. But basically, I just tried to figure out exactly what every single religious stance is. And that's been a fun project. But you pretty much get to the point eventually where you realize that none of them really have anything of value to offer. Like, they have stories and philosophies, but the morals aren't ever really explicitly expounded on, nor are they often good morals.
Right. And
the metaphysics also are very rarely expounded on. So it's kind of like philosophy for lazy people, I guess.
They don't really want to think about it. They just want to know what to believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems a common thing in religions, although it might be more true of West than East. That's kind of one of those things I haven't really looked into too much. Like, Buddha didn't want to be worshipped. He didn't want anyone to make a big deal out of him. So now, of course, everyone makes a big deal out of him.
Right. And that's something that Eastern religion gets right. Like, a lot of their holy texts, like in the Upanishads, they give explicit instructions for meditating and like how to produce certain effects. Like in Tibet, they had, let me think about it, the 6 yogas of Naropa. And the 6 yogas of Naropa covers a meditation technique called Tumo. And Tumo has, in scientific studies, been demonstrated to have the capability to change body temperature significantly. So there are like interesting little bits that you can find in Eastern religions that's actually of scientific interest, but there isn't really that much in Western religion that I've found. Like,
yeah, nothing really of that kind. There is some some interesting historical stuff in Western religions. I'm not sure about the Eastern stuff.
right.
But is that just your conversion story then? You learned about that stuff in your life?
Yeah, I learned about a whole bunch of stuff and like why it's incorrect. I majored in philosophy. I didn't believe in God basically from when I heard that it was an option not to believe in God.
Wow.
My story is kind of similar to that. I also grew up in a Jewish household, and my parents were fairly secular, but my grandparents really shoved it down my throat. You know, they wanted me to do the whole bar mitzvah thing.
I did that.
Yeah, you did that. I didn't, because I lost my religion when I was 12, and I was like, this is just some stupid tradition. Why should I do this?
Tradition.
It doesn't mean anything.
Tradition.
Yeah. So I mean, I was like perusing some forums, just like looking at some of the discussions about religion, and I came to realize that I had been fooled my entire life. So I gave that all up, and I started learning more about science and philosophy. I never really cared too much about history until kind of recently, though. It was actually 3 years ago at the first MythCon here in Milwaukee. We had Richard Carrier come in and speak. We actually got into contact with Mythicists Milwaukee. They contacted us and wanted us to like help them put on their first conference. So we helped them out with that. So it was really cool meeting all these scholars, Carrier, Arthur George, David Fitzgerald, and others. So it's like I heard their talks, and I was like, this is so cool. Like there's so much stuff that I could delve into. So I started reading more about history, especially the history of the Bible and the ancient Near East, and early Christianity. That stuff really interests me, because I think the more one of the philosophies that we kind of run the channel on is the more you study the Bible and religion, the less true it seems to be.
Because, definitely.
It just seems so, I don't want to say engineered, but like manufactured.
Well, I think there's a reason why the majority of Christians who believe in Christianity haven't read the Bible.
Because they would be atheists.
Well, yeah, even when you get the rare Christian that reads the whole Bible from start to finish, it's very rare to find somebody that looked into any of the history of it at all, or that's even interested in doing that.
Yeah, and it doesn't matter. They're told that the whole history lines up with this. Like,
well, this is... you know, like it goes back to what we were kind of saying. Religions kind of have this. You know, we have the answers. You know, come and find the truth here with a capital T. You know, and you got questions. We have the answers, and it's a certainty that they sell you. Although, again, that might be more true with West than East, but I think there is some of that in the East as well. Because usually we deal with Christianity more than anything else, and I get that every now and then. It's like, oh, why are you talking about Christians so much? Like, well, because they're everywhere. I don't know.
Those are the people who speak English.
Yeah, exactly. It's really difficult to analyze Islam videos because I have to rely on the translation, and there's really no argument being offered by them at all. they're very unsophisticated in those terms.
Yeah,
even
that's something I point out a lot, is that Krishna Apologetics is a lot further along than Muslim apologetics, because Muslims have been so unopposed in that realm.
Well, you see it reflected in their religious texts. Like, we've been doing atheist Sunday school for a while, where we read the Bible every week, and like in there you'll get stuff that's like praise God, praise the Lord, but at the same time, a lot of it is also praise God because He will deliver bountiful things to you, because He'll make your generations last forever, because He delivered you from Egypt.
Yeah, and
nice guy.
And we just read that part in Joshua about pretty much the subservience of the people. Yeah. Like, they're just willing to kill anyone that disagrees with Joshua. like what, chapter 1 or 2?
Yeah, chapter 3. Chapter 3 of Joshua, they say that if anyone disagrees with anything Joshua says, they'll just kill him.
Well, that seems like a well-reasoned approach to things. I think I'll adopt that strategy. I disagree with you. Haha, dead. Well,
but in the Quran, there isn't that, like, because God does things for you kind of approach. It is just like outright praise God. Yeah, He's the greatest. There's nothing comparable to God. They don't give you any reasoning to follow Him. They're just like, God, therefore, it's perfect. You should follow it. You should worship it 5 times a day. You should pray.
Yeah, and I have done like no, or like very little looking into like textual criticism when it comes to Islam.
Nobody asked me about my story.
Oh, fine. What's your story?
We skipped the editor. I was gonna say, I was just waiting for him to.
No, I'm the editor.
You're okay. Well, what does he do? He just.
I have the technology and the location.
You have the technology to make us better, stronger, faster.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Of course.
I want to know what you're playing on the game.
I'm playing Pokemon.
All right. Yeah.
It's the only game I have on here.
Forget about your deconversion story. I want to talk about Pokemon now. No, I'm just kidding. Let's hear your probably because of Pokemon you deconverted. So let's hear that.
Sure.
Yeah,
for sure. No,
Pokemon's evil, didn't you know?
Well, to have a deconversion story, I think one must have deconverted from something.
Oh, you're one of those boring atheists that's always been an atheist.
No. They tried. My parents on one side were Christian, and that family was very Polish Christian, and they tried to get me indoctrinated till I was like 13, and they eventually kicked me out of Sunday school because I asked too many controversial questions and took too many agreeing stances with the people that you're not supposed to agree with in the Bible.
Why does God allow slavery? Controversial question. Get out.
Yeah, right. Basically, I don't know. I've been a nihilist for like 14 years now, so still a nihilist.
Yeah, nihilism's a whole philosophy that I brush up against every now and again because people like to accuse atheists of, this leads to nihilism. It's like, well, not necessarily, but appeal to consequence, even if that's the case. So what? What's your argument? And they're like, well, because that's, yeah. That's bad. It's bad that everything has no point to. I'm like, did you read Ecclesiastes at all?
I mean, I could even justify that the Bible proves that God doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, Ecclesiastes is probably the most fun as far as nihilism goes. I think I remember reading somewhere that somebody had believed that Ecclesiastes actually got tacked on the last bit by some early believers because all of it's just pointless. Everything's pointless, and all of a sudden, except for God's not pointless. It's like this comes out of nowhere. So it seems like it could be. You could argue, and maybe somebody has that's more sophisticated of a textual analysis than I am, but it's like that last part does seem like it was just tacked onto some nihilistic guy's writing.
Yeah.
Well, you see that in a lot of religions, even Odinism or Asatru, the Norse religions, when they talk about Ragnarok, they have a bit which a lot of scholars say was added in later by Christians, alluding to after Ragnarok, when all those gods are all dead and gone, one that's greater than all of them will come forth.
Yeah,
right?
That was added, right?
That was definitely added. So we have good reason to believe that most of the things, well, not most of it, but a good portion of what you read in each chapter of the Bible was not written by one person.
Yeah, it was. There were many authors throughout all of time, and it's been so difficult to parse it all out.
Yeah.
Just because there are a lot of like good ideas that work by themselves. Like you have like the earliest version of that is the documentary hypothesis, and now scholars have kind of moved towards the supplementary hypothesis. But there are a lot of different redactions of this. Like there's J, E, P, and D, and then some scholars have suggested like multiple J's and multiple D's. So it gets really shady. It gets very difficult to place them all in history, all the verses.
See, we were taught that the entire Jewish canon was an oral history.
Yeah, no.
And that it was recorded by various scholars at various points.
No, it wasn't.
Well, some of the stories might have, there was a strong oral tradition, but of course, relying on that is problem in and of itself. If you play the telephone game, everybody, that's done that kind of knows that trying to maintain a story, you'll keep certain elements, but you'll lose a lot.
Yeah, and I think a prime example is of we were just reading Joshua. They make a lot of allusions to Moses drying up the Red Sea, and although he didn't, he parted it. That's what it says. Like, so in the context of the narrative, it kind of it suggests a different author, because so there's a part in Joshua where this woman is speaking, saying that it's a Canaanite woman. She heard about Moses drying up the Red Sea, and then they make an allusion to Moses drying up the Red Sea later, although that goes against the narrative in Exodus.
Yeah, well, I think you have to read it in a fake Jewish accent to get the true meaning of it. Well, you see, he dried up the thing. What's that? You say parted, dried, same thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
then it makes sense. That was probably a really bad Jewish accent. I apologize to all Jewish viewers.
They were Jewish.
Yeah, it's okay though. These guys were Jewish, so therefore something can make fun of it. I don't know.
Oh no!
Now,
he's triggered now. You've triggered him.
Uh-oh. Well, I'm no stranger to controversy, so it's okay. So yeah, you guys have done these historical videos, and those seem like the biggest watched videos that you have, although there might be others, I just missed them. And that is something I was finding extraordinarily interesting, because I did my own research, but I really looked into the archaeology of the Bible way, way back when I deconverted, several zillion years ago, however, 6 years ago now. And, it took a year to just look through all the archaeological stuff, and there's nothing, and then there's forgeries, and then, that's it. And it's like, well, that's a problem.
Yeah, when we actually look at the evidence, it's very weak. Like, we have some piece of evidence that suggests something similar happened. Like when it comes to like the regime of David, like we have a decent reason to believe, David was a real person and he was a leader, because there is an inscription about the House of David, and they pretty much he's referred to as a warlord. But when we look at the other archaeological evidence from that time, we see that his regime was nothing of the magnitude that it was described in the Bible as.
Well, it's like what I covered in my Hermes video. There was that Egyptian city that we know existed, and they did have medical practices there. Now, some people claim that the expanded corpus hermeticum that contains all of Hermes Trismegistus's mystical knowledge was located in a library in that city. Well, we know the city existed. We know that maybe they housed books there.
Maybe.
But we have no reason at this point
to actually believe that.
Right, because anything that might have been evidence is long gone. It was not preserved.
Yeah.
It's sort of like I've had Christians say, the original text was perfect. And I'll say, but we don't have that. And they're like, yeah but it was perfect. Like,
it was great.
Originally. And I'm like, how do you know that? Well, because God's perfect. How do you know God's perfect? Because it's in the text. The text that you've admitted could be flawed. Yeah, but that part's not flawed. That part's perfect because God's like, okay, I'm done now.
Yeah, God wouldn't allow that part to be corrupted.
Yeah, he wouldn't allow that part to get corrupted or changed by anybody, right? And so are you guys mythicists because that's kind of been brushed up against with a few of your historical videos? That seems like it could be that.
So, I am a mythicist, yeah, but I'm not.
Not the group.
Shut up, Chris.
Okay.
So, I think the arguments for Jesus not being from the evidence we have, the arguments are. I think they are stronger for the mythicist position. Now, obviously, it could be wrong. That's a possibility. It's not really a big deal. Like if there was some some apocalyptic Jewish preacher named Jesus, who cares? Like it's fine. I really have it really doesn't matter. But I just think it's a really interesting look at historical methods. So I think from the actual pieces of evidence, the mythicist position makes more sense, and we have to assume less. So that's where I stand on that. But I'm always open to having my mind changed on that. I read Carrier's book on the historicity of Jesus. That's a great book. Even if you're not a mythicist, there's so much great information in there. Like every page is just a mind fuck. It's just so much stuff in there. And then it's interesting whenever I read books by more of them mainstream scholarship. I think a lot of the arguments can also be applied to the mythicist position. I think they would make more sense under that view, like a lot of the stuff they point out. But the historical stuff, I'm just so interested in that because I think the history really shows you how manufactured it really is. Like when it comes to the story of Jesus and the woman taken into adultery. I don't know if you saw that video, but it was 15 minutes long or something like that, around there, maybe a little bit less. Then I talk about the addition of the story into the Gospel of John because it wasn't originally there. And we kind of see this slow formation of a story from other references to things that are similar to it. And as the years go by, the story gets more in depth and starts looking more and more like what we find in the gospel. So I think and that's a favorite story of people. Even Mel Gibson had to fucking include it in the Passion of the Christ, even though it had nothing to do with it. So he decided to include that because it was just such a popular story.
Yeah, that's kind of what it is that you have somebody described it, and I think it was apt that it's a fandom.
Yeah.
And, these fans of this anime are really just passionate about this anime. And, unfortunately, they kill some people along the way. They're you got the weird fans,
They're passionate.
They're very passionate. Yeah, they have their own shipping going on. Some of them have shipped Jesus and Mary Magdalene, and some of them are like, no, Jesus shouldn't be shipped to anybody.
Well, I think it's a bit more significant than Lawrence plays it out to be. Insofar as each religion is true in some sense. That is, somebody wrote it down, somebody believed it was true. And the things that are contained in it, whether they're metaphysical ideas about divine beings or their ethical approaches, obviously speak to some people.
Sure.
Right. And that is an interesting phenomenon to me. So I kind of just paint it like that. I don't really care if there was a historical Jesus or not. I'm more interested in the phenomenon of individuals taking inspiration from a canon of texts and actually putting it to practice in how they conduct themselves.
And how they all do it differently.
Yeah. It's a really interesting psychological phenomenon.
And what role does Pokemon play in all this?
Oh, Pokemon is the new religion, right?
It teaches evolution.
Yeah, it's an alchemical religion.
No. It teaches metamorphosis.
Yes, that's
It
right.
says right there, evolution.
Well,
Yeah,
like
well, look, we're gonna have issues with this.
it's like all these animes and stuff. They basically serve the role of religion, right? For the hardcore Sword Art Online people who go cosplaying.
Yes.
Now, look,
Yeah.
we're not going to talk about the bad season of Sword Art Online. We're only going to focus on the good aspects of it, okay?
Right. It basically is a religious approach. So maybe
No. When I was introduced to Sword Art Online by Talon, we all know Talon. He's a friend of ours. Ours, kind of. And he's like, let's watch it. These episodes, skip a whole bunch here, watch these, and in this order. And I'm like, all right.
See, I won't have it. You're not purists. You have to watch the whole thing, especially the annoying filler episodes.
Oh God, no! You ass.
it's like watching all of the
In
filler
Japanese with the subtitles. Otherwise, what's the point?
No subtitles.
No subtitles. That's right. Pure, completely pure. I don't know what the hell they're saying, but it's pretty. Yeah, but yeah. That the thing is, with religion or any phenomenon, that you can get yourself wrapped into it and believe in it so much that it becomes true to you, even if it's not true to anyone else. And you have that problem of natural language with the word true, and well, what does that mean? And it's like, well, true equals real, okay? And it's like, well, but if you're just a brain in a vat and you think that everything's real, it's like, no, stop. We could be in the Red King's dream, but until we have proof of that, it's
Red King's dream.
It's not really anything more to it than a thought experiment, and then you're done with the thought experiment because you run up against the end of the thought experiment. It's like, well, we could be there, but we don't.
Is it nihilism?
Yeah, well, it could be, for all computer simulation.
Well, they're all just different isms.
Well, skepticism, atheism. I mean, there are isms. I get accused a lot of having a worldview, like atheist worldviews. Like, there's no such thing as an atheist worldview. There are worldviews that are the atheism is a part of. Like, you can say that as a skeptic, I have a worldview of skepticism, perhaps, but even that's hard to pin down of what that would be. It's like, well, I just doubt things. Like, I doubt the fact that I have a worldview. Now what?
Right. It's very possible for people like get so ingrained in any of those things that they start to treat it like religion. Like, people say atheism isn't religion, and I agree, atheism isn't a religion.
It's literally not.
But when you have characters like, let's say, Christopher Hitchens, who even as they're dying, go around in essence preaching the position that is trying to get other people to join the position, trying to persuade other people of the position, almost religiously.
I mean, you could say that it's, religiously, sure. But I certainly think the motivations are far different. Like I think the motivation is just because intrinsically we shouldn't be. We're fighting for secularism first and foremost. Like, because I don't give a shit if like person X on the street is a Christian or a Muslim. I don't give a shit.
Right.
But when people start enacting laws that are based on these things, that's when it becomes really dangerous.
Right.
Like, I mean, I think having faith in general is dangerous, but that's a totally different thing.
Yeah, it's very different.
Yeah. I mean, if nobody was running around killing people because of what they believed in, I don't think we would care that much. But unfortunately, there's a large variety of people that are compelled by these beliefs to harm others and themselves. And, you know, I realized lately I got to, you know, really start focusing on Islam, because I've left that, you know, to the side. I don't know anything about it. But it's like, yeah, this is really bad. This is just really, really bad. Like,
definitely. It's, I mean, every religion can be brought to an extreme. Like, I've even heard of like extremist Buddhist monks.
Oh yeah, there are Buddhist monks who essentially condone acts of terrorism in some countries.
Yeah, so like any belief can be driven to like an extreme thing, and it's a lot worse with holy books that are so fucking vague that they could just mean fucking anything.
Yeah,
I'm trying to remember who it was that talked about crypto atheism as a pretend religion. I
have no idea.
No idea, not us.
I could see. Well, you know, there is an atheist church out there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's lots of atheist churches. Yeah.
But that's definitely more about, you know, people like losing communities when they lose religion.
Right. So
it is just this like the social aspect.
So if we take a religion and we include everything that's part of religion, but we just remove the supernatural claims, then aren't we in practice essentially still practicing the religion? Because when someone is a Christian and they do things as a Christian, it's not like in actuality an angel's going to show up and slap them on the wrist.
They could think that.
Well, they can think that, but in the end, their behavior still ultimately is not affected by any supernatural force. So,
I mean, sure, but they obviously would believe that it's something real that they're worshiping, and that they're acting it out because they believe it's real.
Right, but I mean, we still take positions, even as skeptics.
Yeah.
Right.
Nah.
And
I doubt that.
No idea at all. No positions. Just a guess.
Just a
My
guess.
best guess at what's happening at any time.
Well, even if you're guessing,
That's a position.
Functionally.
It's functionally a position.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's still a position.
Yeah, shit.
I got some questions from chat for you guys. So Johnny Drive-By wanted to know what motivated you guys to get active.
All right. Well, I was like, because I started the channel, at least like, I think it was 2014. That's when we started the channel. But I was active way before that, and I was just I saw the effect that religion had on the people around me and the people in, you know, government and at school, fucking everywhere.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is fucking dangerous. These are dangerous systems. Like, if you're believing things without evidence, that's not a good thing.
Not at all.
If you're, and then if you're trying to control people over it, and if you're just being a fucking asshole because of something like that, I want to fight against that.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, imagine that, you know, a lot of people believe that Voltron was God or some shit.
Yeah.
And
what?
yes.
I know where you got that from.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that you know.
That was a great. That was a perfect analogy.
Yeah. So like you wouldn't want people to control, like the Christians certainly wouldn't want people to control their lives because other people believe in Voltron.
Yeah.
So they certainly wouldn't like that.
Yeah.
Well, it's really about having tribalism, right? It's about an ethno state.
Or having a group you belong to or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and-
you might think it's gonna work out for you. It might be that it does because your particular version is the one that's in power and represented, and so for a while it might be like, yeah, this is great. And the minute that it's somebody else's turn, you know, you're not going to be so happy then.
Well, I mean, people like that herd mentality kind of thing. They don't like to be against the groove. And if the groove is Christianity, they'll justify it to themselves if everyone's attempted to justify it for them.
Do you
if they're
mean
suggestible, you know.
Do you mean against the grain?
No, whatever. Yes, I mean against the grain.
Okay.
Against the groove. So you both, I mean, all of you kind of just saw a need, you know, for this, and
Well, I don't know about these guys, but that's just for
yeah.
me.
Well, that was
think
you.
I think I
Well-
just kind of dragged Chris into this, and
Yeah,
he's
come on,
just
Chris.
kinda-
Come on,
always
Chris.
been an advocate of whatever he's doing.
Right, but like
Why are you doing this?
channel.
Why
like,
are you here? What
Yeah,
purpose do you
I
serve?
told you in high school to start a YouTube channel, and then you did it.
I did, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Man.
could have made a
He's the
plan.
mastermind.
Yeah.
Although the channel back then was just garbage, so
But
Yeah,
if
you can look it up. The Russian nihilist.
that's the second one from high school.
The
Oh,
Russian
yeah.
atheist.
That one doesn't exist anymore.
Oh, the
man.
Russian nihilist.
That's
It's awful.
The dead channel.
Yeah.
if YouTube hadn't existed, though, would you guys have still gotten together and done stuff? Or
Well, we're all friends.
yeah,
Yeah, he gets that.
I don't know, man. I don't
We-
know.
we-
I can't tell that.
we might have done something, but I think it would have been much more difficult. Like YouTube is just an easy platform for us to do this on, and I think it's like since you can get people watching that have never seen your stuff before,
Right.
like it's just I think it's a nice way to get an organic following.
Unfortunately, the algorithms don't always work in our favor.
No, not
Well,
always.
most of our general growth is from people saying, "Hey, check these guys
No,
out."
it's not.
It is.
No, it's
Hey,
not.
hey.
Our general growth is from one video.
One video.
Josephus on Jesus.
Oh man, that's our
I
general.
love that video. That was great. I loved
Yeah.
it
That was
because
that's-
it just annihilates Josephus, and I knew a lot of it because I brushed up against that when my research. But you guys even flushed out more stuff that I missed.
Yeah,
I was like, wow, they didn't just forgery this; they really forgeried this.
Yeah. I wanted to go like really in depth into the topic because like I've seen like a lot of really like basic overviews of this stuff, and I was like, okay, so even in the overviews, even if the stuff is true, they're still making claims that I can prove, or that people can prove. So I was like, okay, I will go into each claim, and I will dissect it, give the reason for each one. So I went into the context, and I discussed Josephus's in-depth explanations of other groups like the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and how it's nothing like how he would describe, or how he supposedly described Christians or Christianity. He would have talked about what Christianity was, and there's no place that exists.
Well, we still got Tacitus, so it's okay.
Oh yeah, Tacitus.
There's no forgery there. Oh wait, there might be. Oh,
I mean, yeah, that might be, but I don't even think it really matters because it's so fucking late in the game that it really doesn't matter if it's a forgery or not.
yeah. But it you know, these are, you know, you see these names dropped every now and again by the apologists that, you know, and it's like, look, you know, I try to picture what it would be to be in the mindset of the person that went in to do that forgery. Like, we've got to have more. We've got to have more. And they know that they're lying. They know that they're doing something wrong, you know, but they're putting it in there like, you know, God will forgive me. You know, like, what are they thinking? I don't know.
I'm actually planning on doing a video on Thales on Jesus, or Thales on the Crucifixion, because it's just like this weird. So Thales was this historian we don't have any of his complete writings. We just have quotes from other ones. And this one thing about about the crucifixion and about this darkness that came during the crucifixion has been used to like show like more evidence for all this crap.
You mean the solar eclipse that nobody else attests to during the time that it was supposed to happen?
Right? No, it wasn't a solar eclipse though. It would not have happened during that time. It would have been impossible.
Yeah,
right,
that's what he said.
That's what. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna do a video on that because it's like the quote we have is from a 9th century Christian quoting a 3rd century Christian who was quoting Thales.
Yeah.
That's what we have of his.
Wow, that's impressive. Not and yeah, that's the other question. I don't know if any of you wanted to say more about why you got active or anything like that.
You guys have anything?
I guess I don't like have a problem with people having religious thought or ideas because spiritualities, I don't know if it's real or not. I don't really care. It doesn't matter to me. Usually that frame of mind is not too harmful, but there's an indoctrination process that huge religions have, and it's all bureaucratic and it's a farce and it's legally bad and everything like that. So I'm against any bureaucracy in any form. So
I
don't like it at all. I hate how it turns people into sheep and stuff. It's just horrible. So no matter what, I'm going to support Lawrence and his channel because fuck it.
No matter what,
basically,
challenge accepted.
Basically. Fine. We got it. We got it covered.
So, I do have a story about indoctrination.
Oh, great.
Yeah. I was in sociology class in high school, and the teacher wrote just good and bad on the board right next to each other. And he wanted us to go up there and like write something in society we thought was good or bad and like write one on each side. And under bad, I put religion. And out of all the ones that he could have picked, there were like 50 different things up there. And he was like, one thing I noticed was this one, religion, on the bad side. And I'm like, and he's like, who wrote that? And I raised my hand. And he asked, did you mean to put that on the good side? And I'm like, no, I certainly did not mean to put that on the good side. So he wanted me to like defend my case. And I was like, okay, for example, indoctrination, it's a bad thing. And then we had this big back and forth about it. And then he wanted to chalk up my entire argument to indoctrination is bad. But I had to keep retelling him, no, that's just an example.
Yeah.
Like I could talk about the Crusades and I could talk about all the other shit that has been done in the name of a God that can't be demonstrated. Right. I could talk about that stuff, but I chose indoctrination. But that's the end of that story.
Good story, bro.
That guy was so not helpful.
Again with a PowerPoint presentation.
Needs more dragons. All right, what about philosophy guy? I totally forgot everybody's names now. It's okay.
I don't know. One time in Sunday school, I defined nihilism to a teenage girl, and she cried.
That's why you're an activist. You want to make people cry? Wait, what?
Why you're an activist?
No.
I'm not sure what the answer was to a totally different question.
Well, I mean, people just can't handle having their cages rattled. And so by rattling more cages, we make it easier for them in the long run.
That doesn't answer the question. Why are you?
That's let's rattle cages. I think.
Here's another good reason to
You're just edgy.
That's edgy, man.
Good job, edgy man.
Despite all my rage, I'm still just a rat in a cage that's rattling it.
Right.
Yeah, that will show them.
Well, no, you expose people to even simple ideas, like the idea that nothing matters.
Woo!
Right? And that shouldn't be like a mind-blowing thing for anyone, but some people just can't handle it. And it's only by continually being shown that their fundamental ideas are wrong that you can make a better, more educated, stronger, smarter population.
Yeah, and that's all good. That's all good stuff. You want that.
William McTray, whose name I probably mispronounced, but that's usual. If you die when you go to heaven, where were you before you were born? I'm not sure any of us can answer that question, but yes.
I got it. The void.
The void, right.
I will return to my former self, the void.
If there was a heaven, and if there was a God, and if it knew that I was before I began to exist, where was I before any of I don't know, man.
I don't know either.
Depends what religion you're part of, I guess. But that was their question, so
Brahmin. Oh. There you go.
Yeah. I don't think that they're, well, you know, different religions are going to have a different answer for that. For Christianity, I don't know that we ever really had any particular discussion about that, other than that, you know, that God, you know, knew you before you were born somehow, because, you know, God's atemporal, so it knows everything. So what's the point, you know? But yeah, you know,
your soul was in heaven because it's timeless in heaven. That's a priest answer, right?
Well, yeah, it's kind of the, what was it like, you know, in 1900? I don't know. You know, I'm not afraid of 1900. So why should I be afraid of, you know, 3,000 or 5,000 or whatever? You know, it's like, well, unless science does something cool, I probably won't be around in the year 5,000. I wasn't around in the year 1900. It didn't bother me that I wasn't around. So it's not going to bother me then, I guess. You know?
Right. You can't have an opinion. You're not a thing, and you're not.
Yeah, you can't have an opinion on it. You're like, oh man, this really sucks not existing. Mr. Plato the dog wanted to bring the illusion of mind-body duality into it, comma, the unreality of it, question mark. So yeah, mind-body duality, I guess this is talking about where we were kind of brushed up against earlier with the spirituality, how real that is. And some people conceive of a mind being separate from the body, as if your brain is parsec, not just the brain, but it's also the brain and the mind as two different things, whether that's a spiritual, metaphysical soul, or some sort of mechanical reality, or whatever. So any views on that sort of idea?
I mean, I certainly wouldn't call it a soul, but like I can make the distinction between mind and body.
It really depends on which philosophy you're following.
I mean, I guess, yeah.
I mean, frankly, there is not conclusive evidence either way as to whether or not the mind is the product of the body.
I think it is, but
I think that there's got to be a relationship between the body and the mind, or else I wouldn't have any way of interacting right now with you or having this conversation.
And there are people who have, you know,
there's got to be some relationship.
There are people who have damaged their brains and their personality completely changes.
Sure, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing would be, like, let's say that we could keep your head alive and disconnect your head from your body. Would you also then change personality because you're disconnected from a lot of who you were?
Yeah, well, certainly science has shown some evidence to suggest that the microbiome that you contain has a considerable amount of sway over your total chemistry, and thus, like, if you had, per se, eaten a lot of meat in the past and you got a lot of biome from that, you know, you got a lot of bacteria from the meat that likes to eat that meat as well, and it was healthy for you and it stayed in your gut, you would get a chemical signature from that throughout your whole body that urges you to continue to eat meat because you digested that and those hormones were introduced. So obviously the person without a mind or a head, sorry, or whose head's disconnected from their body, the scenario you gave, the scenario you gave earlier, would have none of those things. So it would definitely change their personality in that regard. I mean, who knows how many factors are involved in, you know, your microecology and stuff like that, for just how you think.
It also depends on how you define mind.
Yeah.
Like, because you could define mind in such a way that personality factors aren't a part of it.
Right.
So if we say you have the same mind as you did when you were 5 years old, well, I'm willing to bet your personality is not very similar to what it was when you were 5. So then we could say that mind just refers to the conscious first-person perspective.
Yeah, but
I'd say that's consciousness, or awareness even, and then we get into that whole debate.
Yeah, I was like, well, the you that we started out with at the beginning of this is not the you that I'm talking to now.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I acknowledge the fact that I am a mental construct as well. So I don't know how many other people do.
Yeah, when it comes to
So
identity,
it's a complicated question. Thanks for asking that question. We'll be here for the next 5 hours trying to answer it.
Right. Let's parse that apart.
Well, you know, they've done really cool experiments with brain hemispheres where, you know, people had their brain hemisphere split for medical reasons or whatever. And the one that I remember is this guy where his left brain turned out to be an atheist, and then the right brain turned out to be a theist. And he has 2 different personalities. And I'm like, well, which one is him? Like, the him that was before you separated the brain, does that still exist at all? Or is
Probably
it...
not.
Yeah. And unless you were that guy, you couldn't... And even if you are that guy, you can't answer that question because the left brain's going to say, yeah, I'm me and I've always been me, and the right brain's going to say the same thing. So...
Yeah.
I have an interesting kind of analogy to that. There's this thing that happens between, it's very obvious. You've probably seen it between either close friends or at least people who know each other really well, could be relatives or whatever. But you talk to one independently or the other independently, and they have their own normal personality or whatever. But you put these 2 together and they're like an amalgamated new person. You know what I mean?
Right.
They're either like an exacerbation or a lack thereof of their original traits, because that's just how they act around each other. So I don't know. That's a tough one for the divided hemispheres.
Well,
I think that they're just 2 new personalities now. Yeah,
well,
I
the
think
thing-
it's
Yeah.
gone.
See, I want to go a step further if we knew enough to do it, you know, and be like, okay, let's take your half of the brain, we'll put it in his half of the brain, his half and your half, and let's see what happens.
Oh, jeez.
Well, I
Like-
mean,
Well, that would ruin a whole bunch of those connections I've been working on between my hemispheres. But thanks so much.
Yeah, well, look, I just want to know what happens. You know, you have half of mine to tell your friend whatever. Well, now you literally have half of mine, but you have the half of mine to your friend. So now are you him, or are you both of you, or what the bleep did we do? I don't know, but I want to find out.
Like I said, it's new personalities that are completely distinct amalgamations.
Yeah.
well, unfortunately, a lot of science isn't interested in answering those kinds of questions. Like,
well, science is so general. It's such a general
well,
term.
what I mean is, for example, psychology literally means the study of the soul. Right?
Does it really?
Yes, it is literally what psyche means, is soul.
Okay.
And
Oh, well, we kind of use
Oh, there
that.
you have it, Milwaukee Atheists. Science proves the soul.
right, well,
we kind of use that term differently in modern vernacular.
well, we changed it to the study of the mind.
Yeah.
Right, but over the last century, that is the last 100 years.
Yes.
From, 1918.
I understand what
the
century is.
But over the last century,
Do you though?
they have changed it over to another definition, and they've completely abandoned both the study of the mind and the study of the soul as their definition. Instead, the official definition from the APA of psychology is the scientific study of human behavior.
It sounds closer to sociology,
Doesn't it?
Right. Well, that's because they haven't found a way to adequately answer any hard questions about consciousness.
Yeah.
Okay.
No one has.
Mr. Pluto also suggested putting a condom on the pipe that you're passing around.
I know what he means, but no, we're good.
I'm like, what? Yeah, I don't. Okay.
It's like these little tips that people call condoms sometimes.
Yeah. What are you all vaping? Is the and then he has,
Oh no, it's a hookah. It's Ruben's the only person cool enough for a vape around here.
Yeah, and he doesn't do that very often. So.
Yeah. It's
none of us are.
what
Yeah,
is it?
sorry.
This is double apple flavor of shisha.
It's basically black licorice flavor.
Yeah, black licorice flavor.
I don't know why it's called double apple.
Me neither.
Because it's supposed to taste like apple peels.
But it doesn't.
Not
It
at
doesn't.
all. Yeah, so there you go.
That's that one.
Yeah, that was we answered every question in chat. That's great. So except for, there's other comments, but whatever, I don't care. There weren't question marks at the end, so I ignore them for now. Later I might do a video about it or something, I don't know. But but yeah, I mean, the mind, the brain, I try to say brain whenever I do a video about, things, and because the mind brings this duality aspect. I'm like, look, your brain is you, but it's more complicated because your brain and body is you. So it's like, well, what happens when you lose an arm? Well, you lose a part of yourself to some extent. So how much do you lose? I don't know.
Well, even if we just take the physicalist perspective, and we say that what your thoughts are is a series of synapses and interactions between neurons. Well, first of all, there's not just neurons in the brain. There are also glial cells.
And second off, we don't exactly understand how the electricity flows through the brain because it in and of itself is a quantum phenomenon. So that's fucking, hey, let's throw another monkey wrench in there.
But also, there are neurons throughout the nervous system. And there are synaptic relations between neurons throughout the nervous system. It's not just in the brain. It goes down your entire spine, through your arms and your legs. Your whole body has neurons in there at some point.
Yeah.
They can be sensory neurons. They can be motor neurons. They can be any number of neurons. But they still have that same synaptic relation between each other. They still mostly release and reuptake chemicals or electric signals. So when we talk about mind being stored within the brain, it's not exactly accurate. The neurons are throughout the body. So really it is your entire body.
Mostly in the brain.
Yeah, most of it's in the brain, yeah.
It's very densely collected.
But, we're all guys, so we know that some of our brain is located somewhere else. But we're not going to talk about that. But yeah, I mean, so it's hard because, the spiritual aspect of people is still in the brain. And it's all reducible to chemicals and other things. But, I mean, there's I don't know if you guys have heard of the God helmet.
No.
I've heard of God's spot.
God helmet?
God helmet, yeah. There was this, so there's this God helmet thing, and they put this helmet, I don't even know what it looks like, but they put this device on people, and then the person says that they feel God, or they feel a spiritual thing, and it's magnetic stuff is, flowing through the helmet and, affecting their brain. Yeah, so it's basically it makes a magnetic field that interferes with your brain, I guess, but it doesn't hurt you permanently or whatever. I guess.
Sure. They've got
as far as we know. I mean, it doesn't do anything permanent. But then I said
they've had a lot of studies into electromagnetic manipulation and especially the lower cortex of the brain because they wanted to find out if they could find supposedly the seat of consciousness. And but when they disabled something, I don't think it was the pineal gland. It could have been a couple of things that they temporarily disabled through electromagnetic pulses in someone's brain. They lost the ability to record memory and they kind of went into a neutral position. So
well, that's a big one.
That's pretty.
But they still conscious, but they
they just didn't remember what was going on or have the ability to do anything to communicate. So
let's see what happens when we poke this.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, and so I was saying to this one theist that let's say there's no reason not to believe these people that are telling us that they experience God or something like that at any rate, whatever that means to them. And so if it's a magnetic field can cause this, how do you know if you walking around that all of a sudden you experience God, that it wasn't just a magnetic field?
Well,
and he, of course, didn't want to answer the question, because the answer is you don't know. There would be no way to know, you know, unless you're carrying around equipment that can detect magnetic fields. And then, of course, it could be some other phenomenon that's causing you to have it. So we have a natural explanation versus a unprovable, unproven supernatural one.
And it's not falsifiable either.
It's not, right. It's completely unfalsifiable, completely untestable, completely everything, you know. So
that's dead, buddy.
Yeah, we killed it.
Yeah. It only had room for 3 more calls anyway.
What?
Well, I don't know. Do we have anything else?
Let's see. What else? Let's see. We did the deconversion stories. Talked about the you guys are the Milwaukee Atheists, so if you ever move, you'll have to change your name. Made that joke, you know. I have your thing, you know, listed. Everybody should subscribe to you. Awesome content. I love the historical stuff, the philosophical stuff. You know, I'm into that as well, especially when it comes to logic. And don't know anything I can say about editing. Just good job there. Keep that up. So I covered all 3 of you. Yeah.
Sort of. He's the editor.
Yeah, I do that.
Well, I don't know what you're doing other than, like, I swear you flipped us off at one point trying to adjust your glasses. Don't think I didn't see what finger you chose.
Oh, man. I was not intended if I did that.
No, you totally flipped us off, and I caught it. Haha.
Well, there. Here you go.
Yay! That's why we're atheists. We just wanted to flip people off.
That's sure. Well,
you just want to sin.
That's right.
Yeah. But you should check out the Narcissistic Nihilist Show ad thing that we made, because that's the only thing I've done recently.
Yeah.
I just want you guys to promise that you'll never again spin that wheel.
Oh. We might spin that wheel some other time.
I just wanted to watch Dawn gesture at the wheel. Like that was the greatest part of that. And then she stopped after like the 5th time. She just kind of gave up on. I'm like, no, gesture at the wheel. I'm yelling at the screen, gesture at the wheel.
I'm glad the wheel girl idea worked.
Yes.
And you know, nobody knew any of the things. Like, it was just so obscure questions that you had. It was great. I was like, where are you coming up with these things? It's like, what do you do?
We spent a good few days on them.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks for your time and energy to do this. Hopefully, you know, you won't get too abused because you interact with me, because I've, you know, gained some notoriety as being, I don't know, whatever. Yeah, I'm
as opposed to the notoriety we already have. You know?
Yeah. You know, we got to have all sorts. Next time we'll talk about, you know, Nazis and you know, and I don't know, whatever else.
Atrocities.
Yeah. We'll talk about all the good things Trump has done, and what else can we? I don't know. We're trying to find videos you could make that would make the other guy not want to support you anymore. Let's kill him. That should be your next video. There you go.
Sure.
I can't support that. Well, I said I would, though, so.
We're just following the biblical advice.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
The Bible told me so.
Yeah, you got to make sure to kill him in the sacrificial way where you aim his neck in the right
sin offering.
Yeah.
It's pleasing to the Lord.
Yeah, it's pleasing. It'll smell good when you burn.
It'll smell good.
Added question marks, interconnected, interacting, eh? I don't know what you're talking about, Mr. Pluto the dog. We're out of time. Goodbye, everybody.
All right, see ya.
Goodbye, and then hit the button now. Do you have any catchphrase that you say at the end of stuff, or?
Well, we have one.
Support us on Patreon.
Yeah, oh yeah. Shill.
Hey, yeah, send them money. I don't ask for money anymore, so send money to them, because they will use it for stuff, and I'll say the thing that I sometimes say, even though it doesn't make sense. Until we have a logically coherent argument, we must be skeptical of the conclusions. All right, now hit the button. Okay, the button.